1 through 4. How short is it?
Death's Game begins by introducing us to the protagonist, Cho Yi-jae, a happy college student full of dreams supported by his girlfriend, Young Ji-soo, as he heads to a job interview that would change his life at the powerful Taekang company, only to suddenly witness the death of a man in the middle of the street. He didn't know it yet, but this fatality would change his life forever. After what he saw, he was so disoriented that he couldn't focus to get the job, resulting in 7 long years living in misery, having to sustain himself through odd jobs as he couldn't land a good job. Besides, he was burdened with a massive debt acquired from university. To make matters worse, he lost all his money accumulated over the years in an unsuccessful investment.
Listen, chat.
Feeling like a complete failure, he ends his relationship with his beloved Jisoo because he doesn't want to ruin her life with his failure.
He also thought he was cheating on her because she got out the car with a nigga type shit.
On arriving home, he finds his belongings outside and a padlock on the door, as he has just been evicted due to the lack of rent payment. And finally, at dawn, he receives the message on his phone that he has been rejected in yet another job interview. All he wished for was to have had a normal life, a good job, to marry Jisoo, and have children. However, consumed by the pain and anguish of his defeats and failures, he makes the drastic and desperate decision to end that suffering. After all, death is nothing compared to the hell he lives every day.
His mom was calling him as he killed himself, by the way. He didn't say bye to his mom or nothing.
After all, death is nothing compared to the hell he lives every day. Upon waking up, he finds himself in another body, as he is now someone else, and by his side is death herself in the form of a beautiful woman. She diverts him from the direct path to hell and takes him to the Valley of the Suicides, revealing what his punishment will be for mocking death. He will die 12 more times in 12 different bodies to learn to fear death and experience how painful it can be. But if he manages to avoid any of these deaths, he could continue living in the reincarnated body. The first body he inhabits is none other than the second heir of the Taekang company, the one that would have been the job of his dreams. He is the younger brother of Park Tae-woo. The two brothers have always been in competition to prove themselves better than the other. Living in the body of someone who has a luxurious life to the point of being in a private jet doesn't seem too bad. However, Yi-jae didn't have much time to enjoy his new life. The turbine explodes, the plane rips apart, and our protagonist experiences his first defeat in the game of death. And this nightmare will happen 11 more times because everything has just begun. Each round he dies, Yi-jae is greeted by death in this dark limbo, which is literally the Hall of Darkness, as the door in front of him leads to hell. Death takes him there to get a taste of what real suffering is like. No matter
So his first life, he was on an airplane, the airplane exploded, and he died. That was his first life.
how much he tries to plead for mercy, his fate is already sealed.
12.
And he realizes that the hell he believed he was going through in life doesn't even compare to the true hell. Now, his new determination is to survive, but death doesn't seem willing to make things easy. After all, how do you survive a free fall
His next life, he's skydiving without a parachute.
without a parachute? Yi-jae now wakes up in the body of a professional world record-holding extreme sports athlete, attempting his new record of landing in a net on the ground. He fails miserably, with his death broadcasted worldwide, leaving everyone in shock. His third reincarnation is in the body of a high school student who was determined to follow the same path as Yi-jae because he couldn't bear the daily bullying at school. He is happy because now, to survive, all he has to do is not follow the boy's plan to jump off the roof. However, he soon realizes how difficult it is to avoid death when you're a weak kid against a group of aggressive bullies. But he follows basic logic. If you can't beat them, join them. Nothing better than teaming up with a stronger student who is also threatened and instigating him to rebel. His risky plan works, and he manages to turn the tables in his favor, turning the intimidator into the intimidated. The problem is that, after being humiliated, becoming the school joke, and losing the respect and the girl he liked, the former bully seeks revenge. And that's how Yi-jae loses another life. At this point, Yi-jae questions if survival is even possible because so far, he hasn't come close. But death doesn't give him concrete answers, let alone hope. On the contrary, it promises that things will only get worse from there. Upon awakening in his fourth body, he finds himself on the verge of being cruelly tortured. We are shown that this man is an assassin who worked for a secret organization that solves all kinds of problems, and he is in this situation after stealing two things from his boss: a large sum of money, and the girlfriend who suffered frequent abuse and aggression. Something I haven't mentioned yet is that, in addition to memories, Yi-jae also inherits the abilities of the possessed body. And the abilities of this body are incredible. Even with the most skilled assassins and the police in intense pursuit through the city, he manages to survive. only to be betrayed in the end by the girl he fought so hard to save.
Yep. So this body, he woke up being tortured. He broke out of there, and he was gonna hide the money somewhere. He was gonna run away with the money, and the girl killed him. His girlfriend that he tried to save killed him.
As she manipulated him to ultimately get away with the stolen money. Seeing Death enjoying his failures, Yi-jae decides to change his tactics. Instead of focusing on each body individually, he acts as if they are interconnected pieces. He decides to use his next reincarnation to recover the money from the criminal who just died, as he is certain the girl couldn't find it. However, Death doesn't make it easy, putting him in
he spawned in jail in his next life, chat. In jail.
Body of a prisoner in the next life. However, all is not lost, as this body belongs to a talented MMA fighter. He was imprisoned for accepting money to take the blame for a hit and run instead of a wealthy man. When the victim died during the trial, the sentence that should have been lenient increased, and the fighter was sentenced to 2 years in prison, with only 4 days left until his release. The original body owner thought it was a good idea to threaten the lawyer of the real culprit for more money, but it's Yi-jae who faces the consequences of this decision. Fortunately, he manages to use his fighting abilities to defend himself from the surprise attack of other inmates who want his head in exchange for the reward offered by the real culprit. Moreover, the stories start to intertwine in this incarnation because he ends up in the same cell as the bully from Life 3, who was imprisoned after the murder. Currently, the boy acts as a disturbed psychopath to scare off other inmates, but Yi-jae can't hold back his instinct for revenge and justice, wanting to take matters into his own hands. He tells everyone how weak and cowardly the former bully is, subjecting him to long days of intimidation in prison. Before leaving, he makes him believe that the spirit of the boy he killed in school is haunting him. Once released, he goes after the money he hid in the past life, and as a precaution...
That's smart, bro. He still has the memories of the last life, so he knows where, like, the money was left at and shit. So with his other lives, he's trying to go get that money that he had in another life, type shit.
Splits it in two, storing half in the subway station locker. Everything seemed to be going well until the father of the hit-and-run victim seeks revenge for his daughter.
Just keeps dying, bro.
Despite Yi-jae surviving the initial attack, moments later, he is betrayed again. This time by the prison mate who ends him to claim the reward. Even with all the knowledge and skills acquired, Yi-jae doesn't seem to realize that his selfishness and greed are blinding him, causing him to overlook details that could help him win this game of death. Back in the Hall of Hell, he urges Death to send him to the next life quickly, because the money in the station locker could end up being lost.
However,
as a
newborn,
opening his eyes, he finds himself trapped in the body of a baby who clearly cannot grab a briefcase of money and can only cry without being understood. Bro. To make matters worse, the baby's parents are extremely abusive, and although Child Protective Services sees warning signs in the fragile little body, they do nothing about it. Totally defenseless, Yi-jae experiences death that same night. This was Death's cold move to show how arrogant he was to take his own life when others didn't even have the chance to choose to live. Now, in his seventh body, it seems to be his best bet for survival and the hope of rebuilding his life. Not only does he manage to retrieve the money bag in time,
nigga,
but he is also a model who has always had an easy life simply for being handsome.
Oh, this one was sad. This one was sad, bro. This is one where he found his girl.
While working at a cafe, he reunites with his true love, ex-girlfriend Jisoo.
This is the girlfriend in his real life before he killed himself. His real life, he sees her. He sees the girlfriend, his real girlfriend from his first body, his first real life.
He discovers that she has become an acclaimed author, and while reading her novel inspired by their love, he realizes all the moments he misunderstood her because of his own inferiority complex. Even though she always supported him in everything, he approaches her pretending to be a fan seeking advice on writing. Thus, they start meeting every day. Yi-jae tells her all the details of his deaths as if they were characters in fiction, fascinating her with his creativity.
He literally tells this story that you're hearing right now, but as a fake story, like, oh, you know.
He strives to get closer to her, even though she is not yet ready to move on. But it's only when he sees the girl mourning his death that Yi-jae realizes the impact his actions had on his loved ones, not only on his girlfriend, but especially on his mother, who is now alone. Seeing her in so much pain makes him understand that giving up his own life was a huge mistake. He finally realizes that Death was right when accusing him of selfishness for hurting others with his decision. The more time he spends with Jisoo, the more feelings and memories of the moments he lived with her come back like a painful blow to remind him of what he abandoned. Realizing that he could die at any moment, he leaves all the money he obtained for his mother, and at night, he decides to reveal the whole truth to Jisoo. He says that the stories he told her about death are real, and the protagonist of that story was himself, Yi-jae. He apologizes for making her go through so much suffering and reveals that she remains his only true love. It took him 7 more lives to finally understand that he had more than enough reasons to live. But just as he learns the lesson, death appears.
Bro, he tells his girlfriend that I've been dying for 7 times. I keep getting reincarnated in different bodies. And this nigga kills him. Like, they get killed. They get killed. Tells his girlfriend, yo, I am me. I've been dying ever since I killed myself. I've been reincarnated into new bodies. You have to believe me. And they get fucking killed.
And that he had more than enough reasons to live. But just as he learns the lesson, death appears ruthlessly to remind him that everything can end suddenly. The two are abruptly hit by a red car, killing Jisoo instantly. While agonizing on the ground, Yi-jae sees who the driver was, the heir of the Taikang company, Park Tae-woo. He then remembers that this same man was the older brother of his first body, the sponsor of the second body, the client of the fourth body, the real culprit for the hit and run, causing the imprisonment and death of the fifth body, and now the murderer of his beloved.
So this man right here is literally the reason why all his other bodies died in some way. It's all tied to this nigga.
Furthermore, the villain still takes the life of his seventh body to avoid problems. Back in the dark hall of hell, Yi-jae feels a double torture now for this specific death. Because besides losing another chance to survive, he lost Jisoo forever. He vows revenge against Park Tae-woo. However, before that, he is fed up with this sick game, grabbing the deadly weapon and aiming it at death herself.
Oh shit. It didn't even explain it. The other parts. Fuck. We're not caught up, bro. There's 2 more episodes they didn't explain, bro. Bro, where's part 2, bro? We gotta stop at, like, after a few. We can't watch the whole thing, bro.
The second part begins with Yi-jae pointing the gun at death. He shoots, then quickly tries to come back to avenge Tae-yu, but the gun doesn't work. As he turns around, he understands that just like water doesn't get wet and fire doesn't burn, death doesn't die. It shows him a bit of its true face to remind him of who it is. After taunting him by transforming into his beloved Jisoo, with a sadistic smile on her face, she sends him to the next life. This time, he reincarnates into the body of Jongyu Cheol, who always enjoyed drawing from a young age. Despite his talent, he was never recognized until one day he saw a woman fall from a building and realized that his art came from death. Portraits inspired by deceased people were worth a lot of money in the foreign market. So he began to take his art more seriously and started pursuing his victims himself. His traces of violence—
Just say he spawned as a serial killer. He literally spawned as a serial killing painter.
—were recounted in the news as those of a serial killer. Meanwhile, his paintings were auctioned for millions. According to the psychopath, a total of 15 people were said to have been reborn in his works of art. Yi-jae becomes physically ill to the point of vomiting as he receives all these memories, but he accepts to use the body of a demon to hunt another. He returns to the scene of his last death and finds Jisoo's pen inside a sewer. That night, Tae-yu convinces the lawyer to take the blame for the hit and run, promising him one of the company's branches to manage. The car's chip, which recorded who was driving, ended up in the sewer along with the pen. While watching an interview of his enemy, Yi-jae's nose starts bleeding and he faints. Upon waking up, he discovers he has a tumor in his head and only 1 month to live, which he considers more than enough to conclude his plan. Ironically, Tae-yu is interested in one of his most expensive works and is waiting for him in his gallery. When they meet, Yi-jae taunts him, revealing that he uses the blood of his victims to create artworks. He says they both have in common the belief that they are gods when they take people's lives. Tae-yu doesn't like hearing that comment, but the artist quickly says it was just a joke. Alone with the killer of his beloved in the gallery, Yi-jae considers killing him, but remembers that death warned him that if he tried to kill anyone, she would interfere and send him straight to hell. He then tells Tae-yu that he will sell the painting to him, but wants to deliver it personally, and for that, he needs his address. After the mass for his brother, where his father clearly favored him, Tae-yu receives a call informing him that his father suspects him of being a psychopath and is investigating him. Irritated, he takes his pills and speeds away in his car, passing by two detectives who soon chase him. Cornered on a construction site, he is approached by the officer who realizes that Tae-yu was under the influence of illegal drugs. However, with just one call, Tae-yu resolves the situation by speaking directly to the police commissioner. In addition to slapping the rookie cop several times, humiliating him and showing who really rules the city. Upon arriving home, he finds Yi-jae already waiting for him. Yi-jae provokes him by stepping on his luxury car. They start a fight, and Yi-jae gives Tae-yu a beating. Tae-yu runs to his Ferrari, grabs a gun and shoots Yi-jae. Believing he has killed him, Tae-yu approaches, but Yi-jae, wearing a vest, surprises him, overpowers him, and takes him inside the house. However, as he prepared for his revenge due to the tumor in his head, he faints. Upon waking up, he finds himself tied to a stretcher.
This nigga can't have nothing, bro.
Tae-yu
His fucking tumor kicked in as soon as he was about to get revenge, and now he's on the fucking...
reveals how he discovered his taste for death. One day, on his way to the office, he accidentally hit a man standing in the middle of the street.
And that was
the same man Yi-jae saw at the beginning of this series that changed his life forever.
Yep.
However, Tae-yu felt pleasure.
This nigga was the cause of everything, bro.
Seeing the man suffer on the ground, and felt like a god at that moment.
If this nigga didn't exist, like, shit would be
when
so
Yi-jae
different.
earlier restrained him and revealed the details of what he would do to him, it left him even more excited because he had never thought of causing death in that way. It was a gift, and now he will test this new method on
limbs
Yi-jae.
Get cut off.
And this was the most agonizing and painful death Yi-jae experienced.
That nigga's arms, legs, everything got chopped off, bro.
However, to Death's surprise, Yi-jae was laughing at her. There were hidden cameras that recorded the businessman committing that atrocity. It was all part of his plan. Since he couldn't kill him, he would destroy him in another way. Death sends him to his next life. An Ji-hyung, a detective who lost his father when he was a child and was also a policeman. When he passed the police test, his mother fell ill with fear that he would die like his father. He then made a promise not to take risks and decided to become a mediocre detective just to survive. His colleagues don't respect him, considering him a coward.
He spawned as a police.
Even after his mother's death, he continued to back down in the face of action, losing the respect even of his partner, Ji-hun. On the street,
he was the same cop as when the niggas pulled the dude over and the dude slapped him on the face and smacked him and threw money on him and shit. He's the same cop that he spawned into.
He spotted his former cellmate who killed him in the fifth life. While the man threatened another with a knife, Yi-jae approached and manipulated him by saying that he was his former cellmate revived, making him confess the crime in front of everyone who was filming. When attacked, he used his skill. They start a fight, and Yi-jae gives Tae-yu a beating. This video went viral on the internet and TV, increasing not only his respect, but also that of
what? That's what I come back to. Hey, we're about to watch Death's game. We're about to finish this recap of where we're at.
The entire force.
He spawned as a police officer. He spawned on as a police officer at this life. In this life.
To the artist's house to retrieve evidence of his last death. However, while his partner called for...
His last death was basically recorded, so he's going to get the footage so he could expose the nigga that killed his bitch, him, and all that shit.
Reinforcements, Yi-jae made a copy of the recordings and erased the original videos. Several pieces of evidence were found there indicating that the artist Jong-gyu Cheol was the serial killer who turned his victims into art. This made his boss very happy, even questioning if he wasn't possessed, as he went from a coward to the best police officer in the force overnight. Someone not pleased with this was Tae-yu, who, upon arriving at the scene, is stopped by the police officer who taunts him, claiming that killers always return to the scene of the crime. Moreover, he sees on TV that the detective is becoming a phenomenon in crime fighting. He then calls his contacts and plans the death of the hero detective. Suspicious of the system, Yi-jae hands over the crime videos directly to a reporter. Later, he discovers that his mother was being investigated.
I'm about to explain everything in like 2 minutes, chat. Everybody that's new.
For her, as cameras filmed it being delivered by one of the victims under investigation. He talks to her pretending to be a detective to see if she was okay. I would have cried
if I saw my real mama.
And at that moment, he sees her wearing the shoes he gave her as a gift.
I would have cried.
He takes advantage of the untied shoelaces to prevent his mother from realizing that he was emotional seeing her in this situation. Later, he leaves food at his mother's door and ends up being cornered by a thug sent by Tae-yu.
Sit tight, okay? Type okay.
Meanwhile, Tae-yu discovers that his father was making progress in the investigations against him. Furious, the psychopath corners a driver on the street and stabs him just to relieve his anger. One of his TV informants warns him about the video of his murder delivered by the detective to the press. When he tries to call the man sent to kill Yi-jae, he finds out that he is the one who was captured and was already in the police station. Using his influence, Taiyu has the police commissioner himself organize a meeting with the detective. Taiyu tries to bribe him with a lot of money and influence, promising to make him one of the most powerful people in the city. Yijie refuses and says that his goal is to destroy him completely. However, later Yijie sees Taiyu playing another one of his cards. He decides to surrender to the authorities,
5 a.m. nigga,
confessing
stay
to
here.
being
I'm gonna
responsible
explain
for the
after
death
all
of
this.
John Yuchil, but claims that he did it to protect himself because he had been kidnapped and would have been another of his victims. Moreover, the images presented on TV were only of the killer taking Taiyu, confirming his version. He would still be in custody, but a movement created by the company claimed that everyone was with him, even calling him a hero. Since Yijie did not make a copy of the video images, he had no way to prove to his boss that the images were forged.
Appreciate that sub.
Taiyu walked out of the police station through the front door as an innocent that night, while the detective was kidnapped by some corrupt officers. Taking his pills and relaxing in his jet heading out of the country, Taiyu ends up having an unpleasant surprise. He sees a recording revealing all the murders he committed and hears a warning that the plane will explode in 30 seconds.
GG.
Desperate, he grabs the parachute and jumps from the plane just before the explosion. He manages to land safely, but only to be run over in the same instant. The detective then appears in front of Taiyu. It is revealed that 2 weeks earlier, in his life as a hired killer, he knew where the crime boss kept the dirt on clients. He took the HD with evidence and with more memories of his brother, knew he kept his pills in the pen and switched them with a sedative. His partner had always been by his side and threatened his own colleagues to lie to Taiyu. And using the skills from all his lives so far, he executed his plan by placing bombs on the plane. As it was taking off,
a little confusing,
it was shown to the press and on TV,
it all made sense at the end.
Him hiring the crime boss to kill his own brother. In addition
How
to
did
the
this
video where he
episode end,
reveals
chat?
all the crimes before killing the serial killer.
He got hit by the truck.
Before Taiyu could wake up, Yijie jumped from the plane and waited for him on the ground while following the traces of the explosion and a GPS. However, driven by the thirst for revenge, Yijie decides to kill him. Not even the appearance of death,
No, not
who would
stopping
take him
yet.
straight to hell, made him stop.
Until
Until Jisoo's pen falls from his pocket, and believing it to be his beloved trying to protect him, he gives up killing Taiyu, thus escaping spending eternity in hell.
I'm stopping right here.
His parachute, causing him to be run over by a passing truck.
I'm stopping right here.